So let's get going. Okay, here are the do's and don'ts for singing Todi Raga in tune with the timeless creations of the Trinity without any discordant note. First and foremost, never ever sing a karvai on Re, Ga, Da or Ni. That's the first inviolable rule. So you will treat only Sa, Ma and Pa as the notes on which you can sing karvais. Third point, sing all the Vikriti Swaras except Ma. Ma is plain most of the time, but it also has a higher variant close to the Pa sometimes. Ma pa da pa pa ma ga ma pa. That's higher Ma variant is there, but most of the time the Ma is plain. And the other Vikriti Swaras, Ri, Ga, Da and Ni, sing them with Gamaka, that is oscillation, most of the time. Now I am going to give you authorities from the great compositions, how these notes ought to be oscillated most of the time. Take Re first. In Shama Shastri Swarajati you have Nata Jana Paripa Lini Vanuju Nam. See how the Re is oscillated. There are other examples. In the Entutaginado, in the Chettaswaram, Ga Ri Ni Ri Ni Ra. That's how it goes. And then there are other examples. The point I am emphasizing is most of the time the Re should be oscillated. I'll come to the exceptions later on. Now I am giving the general rule that most of the time Re should be oscillated. Now we go to Ga. Take the Chittaswaram of Gajavadana by Kumara Yettendra. Ga ga ri ri sa ga 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 ma ma ga ri sa ga ri ri ni ra ga ga ri ga 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 ra ga ri ga 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 ma ga pa ga da ga ni ra ma ga ma ni ra ga ma pa da ni. It occurs 22 times. The oscillated, robustly oscillated Gandhara. It's the very soul of Todi. It is the robustly oscillated Gandharam that puts Todi on a majestic pedestal of aesthetic beauty. So, most of the time you have to oscillate it like that. There are other examples. Sama Krishna. In Shama Shastri, Ninne Naminanu. Nannu Bra. Look at the Gandhara. Kadanu Vareki. Kamalamukhi Dharagala Ganalila. The Swarajati again, Shama Shastri Swarajati. Kamalamukhi Dharagala Ganalila Gaja Baramrika Vilo Chanamani Radana Gajagamana. See how he has deployed the Gamakas on the word Gajagamana, which means the majestic yet graceful gait of the female elephant. Gajagamana. The swagger he is trying to suggest. Now we come to the Daivata. Yemi Jesi Dene Yemi Tyagaraja. Yemi Jesi Dene Yemi Ragama. You have the same sweeping oscillation of Daivata in the Anupallavi of Ninne Namminanu in Kannatalli, and in Pannaga, Ninne Namminanu as well as Nannu Brochudaku. Look at the way he is deploying the Gamakas to suggest the movement to the serpent on the word Pannaga meaning serpent. Pannaga. Pannaga. And in Nannu Brochudaku, Pannaga. And in Sri Krishna, which we are going to sing, Gada, Gada, there's a Swaraksharam also there on Gada. Now we come to Nishada. In Dasharthi you will notice in the Anupallavi, the oscillated Nishadam. Similarly in my Guru's Tillana, Ramanathuram Srinivas Singar Tillana and Todi, Nirajasana Divinuta Nidupada Pankajamu Lanuneranami Yunna Nirajasa. The oscillated Nishadam. So there are many more examples you will come across in the great compositions. The point is, most of the time, these four notes ought to be oscillated. Now, we come to the exceptions to the above. Very limited use of the plain Re and the plain Daivatam will add to the Rakti and grandeur of the Raga. And you find a few examples of these. Actually, if you find the plain Re 10 times, you will find the plain Devata 5 times. And just to give you a rough idea. Madamata Mahishadana in the Sarjati. Kamapa Linidi Vegatiyane Koriti. It's a Swarashram also and it's a plain Re. Rave Himagiri Kumari. There also you have a plain Re. And then you have Endudaginado. In the Charanam of Hemajestri also Guru Tanai. There also you get a plain Re. Endudaginado. Endudaginado. Endudaginado, Tyagaraja starts by asking, where has the Lord gone into hiding? And then he goes on to reassure himself and us that we need not worry that the Lord is hiding himself. Did he not hide in the pillar just before bursting forth to protect Prahlada, his devotee, from his father, Hiranyakashipu? Did he not hide behind the tree just before protecting Sugriva from Vali? So we can rest assured, wherever the Lord is hiding, he will definitely hasten to come and protect us just when we need him. We need not worry that he is hiding. That is how it goes. Now, the plain Daivatam is much more rare than the plain Rishabham. You will find it in the Charanam of Ninuvina Sukamugana. Rupamu Pratayapamu Rupamu. This is where the Kala Pramana of singing Ninuvina Sukamugana is very important. Because if you sing it in a very slow Kala Pramanam, this Da will get elongated, which should not happen because it is not there in any of the great compositions, a Karve on Da. Therefore, you should choose a Kala Pramana where you will just hit this plain Daivatam for that Ruchi very briefly. Bhakti Leni in Dasarthi, there also they have a plain Daivatam. Similarly, in Ninne Namminanu, in the Pallavi, Sada. Sada. That plain Devatam you have. But only at the end of the phrase, a brief, sharp Devatam adds to the Rakti. Even more rare than the plain Devata is the plain Gandhara. One example you will come across is in Sri Krishna. This is Sri Krishna. Shankachakra Gada Padmavana Malam Venugana Lolam Kripala Balam Kankana. That's a very, very rare example of a plain Gandhara. Plain Nishadam is very hard to come by in the great compositions. There is one version of Kadanavariki Pallavi where you get this very strange Sangati. Kadanavariki Kadukadani. This Sangati is a stray occurrence. It is not to be found in the traditional Patantarams. For example, it is not there in the version of Kadanavariki which has come down to me. I belong to the Manabhuchavadi Shishya Parampara of Tyagaraja. In this Parampara, that Sangati is not to be found. Even other Shishya Paramparas of Tyagaraja, it's hard to come upon this Sangati. But there is a stray occurrence. A few people have sung this Sangati. I want you to stay away from it because it starts by suggesting Natabhairavi and ends by suggesting Dhenuka. That's as far as the plain Nishadam is concerned. Now, a couple of more points. When you end a phrase with Nida, be careful to avoid the doleful effect, introducing pathos. That sharp ending of the Daivata adds to the Rakti and grandeur of the Raga. But if you leave that Nishada and Daivatam hanging loose, it will introduce pathos. If you do that, it introduces unwarranted pathos. And TODI is the Queen of Carnatic Raga. There is no place for pathos in TODI. So you should be careful to avoid that effect. See, the thing to remember is, just as there are many vocal styles, there are many violin styles. You cannot expect every violinist to exactly reproduce your Sangatis. It doesn't happen that way. Some of them may slow down your Sangati and play for his own reasons of experiencing the Sangati. Stylistic differences are there. So, you should not get influenced by their interpretation of your Sangati. You should stick to your own idiom, your own Kala Pramana. Don't get slowed down because the violinist plays that phrase slower than you have sung. You stick to your Kala Pramana and you stick to your idiom. That's how you should give the Daivatam. And similarly, that Ga should always be robust, it should always be sufficiently elevated. Sometimes it is given as, some people sing it or play it as Mapamaga, Mapadavamaga. This should be avoided because if you pull the Gandharam down to that extent, it smacks of Hasaveri. So that you should avoid. Gandharam should always be elevated and at its correct position, not come down close to Chatushruti Rishabham so as to suggest Asaveri. Now, you need to remember that this TODI, that is the TODI in which I am asking you to do tapas, is extremely rare. That is all the more reason for you to cherish and preserve it. You don't find gold and diamonds strewn on every street, do you? So this TODI of the Trinity is extremely rare to come by in the concert circuit. 99% of the time, you will hear a different version of TODI, which I will talk about. But I would want my students to religiously stick to this version of TODI, which has been handed down by my Guru, which is closely aligned with the Swarupa of Todi as found in the great compositions of great Vagyakaras, especially the Trinity. If you sing Todi this way, there will be no mismatch. It will be completely in sync with the composition that you sing after the Alapana. But in the other version of Todi, there will always be a mismatch. The Alapana will be vastly different from the Kriti, which will be full of Gamakas. Because even those who sing the Alapana differently, sing the Kriti in the manner in which it has been handed down, with Gamakas they sing it. There will always be a mismatch between the Alapana and the Kriti rendering. The other version of Todi, which you will find in most of the concerts, how it has come about is, in my Guru's generation, my Guru and his contemporary Musiri Subramaniar, early contemporary Musiri Subramaniar, they used to sing Todi with Gamakas. They used to sing the Todi that I am talking about, which I am asking you to practice. But in their next generation, some great musicians brought the Nadaswara Bani Todi into the mainstream of vocal music. Nadaswara Bani Todi is different for the reason that Nadaswara Vidwans are required to play throughout the night during the temple festival, which means that a single raga they will have to play for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So if they have to stretch it to that extent, they have to improvise various things. One of those things they do is to play karveis on all the notes. Riga, da, ni, I said you should never sing a karve. But they play karve on all the notes. Then they play all the notes with gamakam or without gamakam. Both. So in this process what happens is, it becomes very different from the Todi of the Trinity compositions. That is number one. Number two, it also suggests other ragas. This kind of Alapana which goes on for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, they explore the raga as much as they can. In this process, and because you sing or play without the gamakas, you end up suggesting Ahiri, Dhanyasi, Natabhairavi, Dhenuka, Hindolam, Sindhubhairavi. Whereas in the Todi, it is Todi through and through. That is the essential difference. And actually this other Todi, which is common currency, is less challenging than what I am asking you to do. It is much less challenging because if there are no restrictions, if there are no don'ts but only do's, do whatever you please with the 7 notes, then it's a lot easier. You are not hemmed in by this rule and that. But if you want to attune your alapana to the creations of the Trinity, you have to observe these do's and don'ts. So, I do hope that you will understand the preciousness, the tremendous value of the Todi in which I am asking you to do tapas, and you will go on to practice Todi in this manner and experience elevating aesthetic beauties of the raga. May Tyaga Brahma bless you.